Welcome to the Great Basin Prescribed Fire and Smoke Transport Briefing for Monday, March 23rd. Currently, we have quite a bit of prescribed fire occurring, especially in the north across Idaho, but also still a few prescribed burning fires in parts of Nevada and Utah. However, we are seeing some smaller wildfires pop up, especially across Utah and into parts of western Nevada, just due to the recent very hot and dry conditions we've been seeing, along with any wind that we do see. Over the last 7 days, we've only seen precipitation in the far north, and really all of the Great Basin has been bone dry. And you can see that even in the last 14 days, the very dry conditions over the southern half of the Great Basin. No new snowfall over the last 72 hours. Any new snowfall has been very light into our north, and then the snow depth is indicated here on the right, but is diminishing very rapidly in this heat. And you can see from the current snowpack, we are well below normal, even almost zero in some areas of the Great Basin. And this is not just specific to the Great Basin, really west-wide, with the exception of portions of the northern Rockies, we are seeing well below normal snowpack, and we've continued to see that really all year. So looking at our current ERC conditions, it's no surprise with the recent very hot and dry conditions. We've seen well above record temperatures over the last week. We are seeing ERCs near or above maximums really region-wide across the entire Great Basin. And you can see from the green forecast line, these ERCs are continuing to track upwards. In some areas of the southern areas and even eastern areas of the Great Basin, we are seeing these ERCs creep above the 80th percentile, and you can see we'll even be getting possibly close to the 90th percentile in some areas over the next several days. However, we are still in March, so we are seeing shorter daylight periods. But again, these conditions very historic for the time of year, so something to certainly keep in mind with any prescribed burning, especially on windy days, and we will have many windy days coming up this week. But also, if we do see any new starts, that potential for growth will be certainly during those windy periods. Looking at our evaporative demand drought index, indicating more of that flash drought, over the last 7 weeks, you can see we are seeing the more significant conditions over the southern half of the Great Basin, specifically in Utah and the Arizona Strip. So again, these areas will be showing those above normal, especially for the time of year, these drought conditions that are rapidly developing in these record temperatures and very dry conditions. So looking at our weather pattern for today, for Monday, again, we still have a ridge of high pressure dominating, but we will see some moisture spilling across that ridge, mostly in the form of cloud cover in these areas in green today, but could see a few spotty showers or even a brief lightning strike over parts of northeast Utah today. Otherwise, maybe some light showers in the far north and central Idaho, otherwise dry conditions. Although we will see relative humidity come up across the Great Basin, so we won't see the single digits that we were seeing last week across the region. We'll see more of those relative humidities in the teens. So a bit of an improvement there. And then the dispersion, good dispersion almost region-wide, as we will see much stronger winds today. And you can see that on the transport winds today, most of those gusts in the 30s and 40s across many areas of Nevada and Utah. So again, something to keep in mind with any ongoing prescribed fire activity or even debris burns by the public or any new starts that we do see could have some potential in some of this wind. Mixing heights will remain high region-wide. Looking at temperatures today, these are certainly knocked down from what we were seeing last week, with highs mostly in the 70s across much of Nevada and Utah, but still in the mid-90s over southern Nevada. And although these temperatures are down from what we saw last week, many of these areas in southern and western areas of the Great Basin, these are still near or at record heat for the time of year. Much cooler conditions from what we recently saw up north. At least we'll see highs back into the 60s, although that is still above normal for the time of year, but not near records in Idaho. Relative humidity, you can see, again, we are seeing more of those teens to low 20s relative humidity across the region, so definitely an improvement from what we saw last week. As we move into Tuesday, we will see the ridge rebuilding across the region, so we will see temperatures beginning to climb once again after a somewhat cooler day today. So again, that record heat really across the region will be possible as we go through this week, especially in Nevada and Utah. Any moisture on Tuesday will be moving across the top of the ridge, possibly into central Idaho with some light showers, but much of that moisture is really to our north. Otherwise, dispersion will be good again on Tuesday as winds will remain strong. And you can see on Tuesday, the better chances for the stronger winds will be across the northern half of the Great Basin. So anywhere from the Sierra Front across northern Nevada into the Uinta Basin, and then up into Idaho and Wyoming, we will see those wind gusts again in the 30s and 40s. Mixing heights will remain high. Looking at our hot, dry, windy index, these are indicating where the gusty winds in dry areas really match up and showing the different percentiles across the region. And you can see, if you can see Nevada, Utah, Idaho beneath these areas, we are seeing some pretty gusty winds for the time of year. Really going through the next few days, we will see winds in some of these areas getting into the 90th or even 95th percentile. Again, this is for the time of year, so much stronger winds than maybe what we would normally see. So always something, again, to keep in mind in areas that we see prescribed burning or if we see any new starts. Looking at temperatures on Tuesday, we will continue to see those temperatures rise. So we'll be back up into the 80s in many valleys across Nevada and Utah and down into Arizona. We will see those highs in the mid 90s remain in parts of the far south. Even temperatures up north in Idaho will rebound back into the mid 70s. So again, these are all near or at records for the time of year. Relative humidity will be certainly improved across central Idaho, so good news for some of the prescribed burning that's occurring up there. Otherwise, we will see relative humidity in the teens further south. Moving into Wednesday, the ridge still remains strong, although we will have a weaker trough moving into the Pacific Northwest. Still really doesn't change much of our weather here, still the warm temperatures, and we will continue to see those gusty winds keeping dispersion higher. Winds on Wednesday will be generally region-wide with most gusts in the 30s, but we could see some gusts in the 40s, especially up into parts of Idaho, Wyoming, and even eastern Utah, even parts of the Sierra Front. Mixing heights remaining high region-wide. Temperatures remain on the warm side, especially across Nevada and Utah. Might dip down a bit from Tuesday's temperatures, but still remaining near those record temperatures. And then relative humidity staying in the teens in most areas, with the exception of across Idaho and western Wyoming. 3-day precipitation, we may see a few showers or thunderstorms pop up beneath the ridge, again with these weak troughs that move into the west coast. So we could see some very spotty showers or again a brief thunderstorm, and maybe some better showers up into parts of the Payette or even northern parts of the Salmon Chalice. But you can see much of that precipitation really outside of our region. So going into Thursday, you can see the ridge continues with the warm and dry conditions, or hot and dry conditions rather, for the time of year. Dispersion still remaining fairly good across the region as those breezy winds continue. As we move into Friday, we will see some troughing off the west coast, so that will push the stronger portion of the ridge off to the east, so we will see temperatures come down a bit as we go later in the week and the weekend, but still remaining very warm for the time of year. And then as we go into Sunday and Monday, we could actually see some moisture moving into the area with an area of low pressure tracking in from the Pacific. So we'll see how that pans out, but there could be at least possibly a return of some moisture finally to southern areas of the Great Basin. Looking at the 7-day total precipitation, this only goes really through Sunday, so not picking up on any of that moisture yet in the forecast coming in potentially Sunday, Monday, but we will see how that plays out. I will say the weather models are very encouraging for this portion. This is really going into early next week, so there could be some potential as we head into the very end of the month, going into early April, for wetter conditions across the Great Basin and in many areas of the West. So hopefully this does pan out. And I will say, looking at the forecast, the CPC 8 to 14-day outlook definitely shows this change in conditions with bringing moisture into the west. Temperatures, however, will still remain above normal. So if we do see any snowfall, it would be in the highest elevations. And again, that really won't have much impact this time of year anymore, just coming off of much of the melt we've already seen. But the moisture would be a welcome sight across the west. So we'll continue to keep watching that. That concludes our webcast for today. Check back on Wednesday for the latest updates.